Hi everybody, my name is Illya, and I would like to ask you a question about yesterday night. Have you been to the party yesterday? Please raise your hands who has been there. Wow, thank you very much for coming today. Because I know it was a wild party, and envy you that I haven't been there. I were trembling and preparing for this lecture. And finally, it's here, and I hope I will be able to relax after. And I would like to ask every one of you for coming here and say that it's the first time I'm performing in such a big room, so don't judge me really strict. And a big thank you for the organizers, Paula and Olga, and my admiration for making such event, because I were involved in the organization of some events, and I know how hard is it to make something like this, and it's amazing. Thank you too. And thank you, René, for encouraging me to take my chance to be here. I'm not alone here. I'm here with my partner, MariaNorazian. We are together the founders of Grafprom studio, and we are from Ukraine. Maybe you know there is such country, and it's not really far from Poland. And I will tell you that Ukraine is a country of changes. And this is why, because every 10 years, we have, sometimes even more frequent, we have a new concept of the country, sometimes even new naming. And this time it's called Ukraine, but it has several different names in the past. And for example, in my life, I've seen every decade something new. When I was born in the beginning of '80s, it was perestroika. My parents told me it's not so bad, something good will come, because my parents are creative people. My father is an artist, so they were expecting some good changes from that. But in '90s, when I became a teenager, there was a putsch, and there was a huge crisis in my family as well. Father had to sell all his photographic equipment to have some food for the family. And actually, the photo you are watching on is made by my father. I put them to keep you in the context, so you would feel the context during my talk. In 2008, it was another financial crisis, and my first child was born. So at that time, I was still a little bit surprised. And when Maidan came in 2013, I was not surprised anymore, because I know it should happen. I just didn't expect so fast. And actually, in 2014, we had a war came to the country, and at 2015, my second child was born. So now I think it's a place of eternal crisis, but you will see that it doesn't mean it's impossible to exist in such a place. So we are from Kharkiv. It's a city very close to Russian border, 30 kilometers to be exact, and 200 kilometers from the war region where the war goes on. So I have some friends who are volunteers in the war, and some of them are really fighting, some of them are just helping. And I know some people who who distanced from me because of this situation. So it's really an issue, actually. It influences people's life a lot. And also about Kharkiv, if you Google, you will find out some stupid facts, like, for example, this monument, which is called Mirror Spring, and it's very beloved by city authorities to show as a symbol of the city. I don't know why it doesn't tell anything about the Kharkiv. Or biggest in Europe market where you can buy everything. It's a city inside the city, and you can buy, I don't know, a car, a tractor, or socks, or whatever you need. You can have it there. Also good Vietnamese udon. And the biggest square in Europe, as there's a legend that it is the biggest one. It has the biggest Lenin statue, which is not there anymore. It was dismounted by angry people in 2014. And for some time we had a statue of Lenin's shoe. But city mayor didn't like it a lot, and he came up with this. Yeah, it was my reaction as well. And then I thought, it doesn't surrealistic enough. And I asked my student to add some fine details so it would be more organic, like this or like this. And in the end, we came up with this project, which looked enough surrealistic for us, finally. We think we are finally in the flow with the fashion. So what else was important for me in that picture was that boring gray building on the background, because it's greatest monument of modernist architecture, of avant-garde architecture, constructivism, which were, Kharkiv was a motherland of constructivism and avant-garde of Ukraine in beginning of 20th century. And also I found out that I think that this idea was not only important 100 years ago, because I saw a robot in some futuristic movie called Interstellar, which looked very much for me like an animated walking Grafprom building. They just took it and made it walking. So this leads us to the idea that modernism is not only the past, it's also a good basis for the future. And if you dig further, you will find out also some interesting coincidences. Like on the left, you see a picture of Ukrainian avant-garde artist Vadim Meller. On the right, it's a photograph of a very contemporary and nice, fashionable set designer from New York, Eddie Goodrich. And also here, it's a sketch of Boris Kosarev, who is the avant-garde artist from Kharkiv. It's a costume design, and on the right, it's also some photographs from New York. And if you go even further, you could search the folk art, which is the basis for avant-garde art, and you will find out also some interesting facts about the past is also the present and maybe the future, because here we see the ruchnik. It's a spread from one of the books we designed about Ukrainian embroidery. And here we have jaded London velvet miniskirt with fringe detail in bright tribal print. Costs $69 US. You can buy it on asos.com, which doesn't make sense to me because it's Ukrainian embroidery. What it's doing there. So speaking about us, it's not us, but we found recently this photograph in Family Archive, and it meant for us that it was a destiny for Grafprom to happen and for us to become a wife and a husband, because these two, they look very much like us, but we are not that serious. So Grafprom Studio, it was our dream when we graduated from our art school and became a fresh-made artists and designers. We thought, okay, now we will rock, we will have international clients, we do good projects, we earn a lot of money, come on, let's do it. And this is how studio looks by now. And a big role in all of that played our professor, who encouraged us to do a lot of interesting things. And I should say a little bit more about him, because he's not just a good professor and the man who brought to profession in Ukraine, in whole Ukraine, a lot of wonderful designers. He also a magician. He knows how to do good things from bad things, which is important for crisis countries like Ukraine. And it all began from one very bad thing, a disaster, which was called a catastrophe of Chernobyl. And he was one of the group of people who were to deal with the consequences of this catastrophe. He was there, he had his dose of radiation, and when he came back, he decided to set up, not to leave it like this, to set up an exhibition about the ecology, about this problem. And then he had to repeat the festival in 3 years on, and that's how the fourth block Triennale, the Eco Poster exhibition, which takes place every 3 years in Kharkiv, was born. And past 10 years, me and Masha and our studio was involved also in design and organization of this event. This is how I know about how hard it is to make an event like this. So here you see some of the pictures we designed for our first time, and this is the second one. We had plastic bags starring in the identity, because the idea was first to get rid of them, and then when we understood that it's impossible, we started to make fashy photographs and tried to convey that you have to find a way to make things look beautiful if you cannot get rid of them. And also we had a poster campaign which consisted from, it was very anti-crisis because we had no money, like always, for such projects. We printed only one color poster, which was blank actually. And you had to finish it, and it was pretty easy because the city were really dirty. There was a lot of trash lying around in the city, so you just had some blank posters, some sticky tape and volunteers, and every time we had a different poster hanging around, pointing people that there is a problem and there is also a festival which talks about it. And actually it worked. We had some calls from city authorities, we had argued with them, and I don't know, maybe it pointed them something. Also we had some situation when grandmas, cleaning ladies were shouting at us and taking off all the garbage from the posters, trying to make them look beautiful because they thought we are vandalizing beauty like this. And the last festival which we took part in was in 2015, right after the war has started, and we had really a lot of doubts, should we ever do it, because there is a war, people dying, people suffering, and we are 200 kilometers from there, maybe even tanks will come to the city. The time was really, really uncomfortable and too calm in the city. We were expecting Russian troops to come from one day to another. But professor said, no way, we should do it. Even if they will be coming, we should do it even more, because culture is much more important during the wartime. And the identity also show these sharp circumstances which we were making the festival in. You can see the projected typeface into these hedgehogs, the black stars, but there was a hope also. And we did it for really good. We had a lot of very good feedback, especially from people who were somehow involved in the war or suffered from this crisis. And us also, we were not sitting aside, we were doing something we are meant to do. So we had two venues, and one of them was the very, very good place, and after that a lot of people were doing, it was kind of place like this, it was not used for events, and now it started to become a really popular venue also, so we discovered the venue. And talking about poster, we were involved in poster design and poster events from our beginning of our study. And the question which was also disturbing us all the time was that who cares about posters? And when we answered for it like, okay, if no one, then we care, but we wanted to know exactly if there is a future behind this media, because our professor, Veklenka, he told us when we were young that actually it's dying. Guys, you have nothing to do with it, but this media, you like it, we make the poster show, but it's a dying media. Don't put high stakes on it. And we were really stressed with it, and we wanted to prove, is it like this or not? So we made a very naive, childish, but really useful project. We printed really simple posters with one color and 2 words on it, poster maybe, and we were asking, we wanted to know the answer, we were asking. We were putting it in the night, unauthorized. Most of our poster actions were not authorized because it's really a strong bureaucratic apparatus in Ukraine and in Kharkiv especially. We have very special mayor. So we were hiding from police, doing it in the night, which was fun as well. And next day we were fixing with photographic cameras what will be, what kind of adventures will our poster be into. And also we had real feedback. Someone were answering this question, which was amazing, and we decided that yes, if there are even 3 people who are doing this for us back, then super, fantastic, we should go there. And it was a kind of a logic continuation of this project, or somehow. 10 years after, I were asked by a Polish curator to make also poster installation inside of the gallery, and I decided that inside I should not put the posters, I should take them off. So first, yeah, we had to glue them to the wall, and then we were ripping them off. And we called this project Zakaz plakatowania because it was a cooperation between Polish and Ukrainian sides, and it looked like this. It was a wall of ripped off posters, and I would like to thank to Siphon Studio for providing them their wonderful poster, and say sorry for damaging it, but it is still there, just covered by a layer of paint. So when we passed for all these years dealing with poster, we also gathered some knowledge about it, and we wanted to share it. And right after the war started, people in Ukraine got crazy about education. Everyone wants to learn everything about everything. We have a lot of courses, personal, private educational classes, and so on. So we set up our own about poster. And the promo was printed also in kind of anti-crisis way, with super low budget on the rear side of some old poster about Chernobyl exhibition, which we found in our studio. And the super event we have in this lecture classes, that we had superstars from Poland, Siphon Studio and Jan Bajtlik. They came with lectures and workshops. It was really fun. They not only showed us some works and how to do posters, also how to climb in a gallery. And there were some really great posters made by the students during the workshop. But all this time I'm talking about actually cultural projects which have no connection with making money, and I think you would ask how do you survive there? And I should say that Grafprom was a wonderful idea we had, and it was a dream, our own studio, blah, blah, blah. But we actually, for the first, I think, 7 or 9 years, had really small income for our projects. And we had to work also on a third job, which was agency. And it was not bad at all, actually. It was hard. It's always hard to have 3 jobs, but we had a lot of good experience. We knew how to deal with big clients, how to interact with other people, because it's when only two of you in a studio, you don't really have to interact with someone. It's very comfortable, and why? Yeah. And here we had an agency, we had to communicate, we had to go for presentations, we had to make large-scale projects, and they were also scalable, which is also important to know how to make a project that it could go from you to other designers, and they will do some really big things, some really small, they will animate it, and so on. So it was really useful experience, and we were afraid, and you should be afraid, like you should feel uncomfortable and a little bit trembling before you do something. That's what one of our mentors said, because that means you are doing something new. And I just heard it on lecture of Aga Shostak. She also were talking about it, and I totally agree. So, not only commercial work was done at this agency, we were able to use our passion to Ukrainian avant-garde and Ukrainian folk art and naive art, and we made some remixes of Ukrainian imagery for some fair, which was for us really interesting. And finally, we were out of the agency. We were totally tired, exhausted, and didn't want to continue. And we became alone again, only two of us. It was again trembling because we had some future. Masha was pregnant by our second child, and we also had this perspective of having less money and so on. But we went for it, and actually it was fantastic. By now we do a lot of projects which we enjoy. We work with friends, we work with people who we share ideologic, and we have the money we want to have, and we go on every time for some adventure to travel, because agency didn't let us to travel a lot. It was one of the issues with working for a big company. And some projects start to go abroad. We made a restaurant in Switzerland, and a startup for Brussels, and some worldwide brands by now. So it was a lot of projects. I will not be talking too much about this work, only will feature one, my favorite, which is in Kharkiv, not only because of this beautiful photography with a naked woman in the kitchen, but because we were able to combine avant-garde roots with contemporary pop and commercial culture in this project. It's a cafe which is situated in the very center of Kharkiv city, and you have to go there if you will be in Kharkiv, because it's a place where you can eat some food which is cooked by your grandma who went to courses of fine cooking. They do it really, really great, but also for us it was an amazing experience of combination between some things we learned from the past with some things we have here on the very edge of the fashion, and the place looks like this. But yeah, making commercial work, it always makes you feeling a little bit tired, because you get tired of thinking all the time about money. And some of our mentors also said that you don't have to concentrate always about earning the money. Money should not be your main aim. And we always kept it in our minds, because he said, money, by the way, I didn't understand it first because I needed money very much. When I was a student, I wasn't able to go anywhere where I wanted. But later I started to understand if you have in your mind something bigger than only earning some money, then it becomes more balanced. So we're trying not to do only commercial things like branding. We also do books, which is mostly Zen, because it's sometimes pretty boring mechanic work. You have to lay out, you have to put a lot of text to align the images, to go deep into the content. But it's good as well, because you have time to rebuild yourself a little bit. It's not all of them, it's just a part which I were able to gather in the studio for this photograph. And I wanted to tell about one which wasn't on the previous picture. It's a book of poems, which was the beginning of another favorite project. It's a book of poems of Sergei Zhadan. He approached us with an idea of a new book. And while it was one of the rare books, we were not only making the design, but also read it. Which is rare, actually, for our shame, maybe. But this time, while reading it, we decided not to keep it only in a book. We thought that more people should see it. And we came up with an idea to put it on the streets, but this time officially, because we have a lot of super mega ugly advertising outside, and especially in light boxes. So we thought that we should put something different. We should put some culture to the light boxes. And we designed 15 posters. Each one contained a poem designed in a bit unreadable way. So it was kind of anti-posters. And the aim was to play on people's curiosity, to make people stop and try to figure out what it's all about, because it didn't look like a normal advertising. And we got some grant money to hire 15 light boxes in the center of the city. And it looked like this, and I really saw it worked. I really saw people stopping by. It was a lot of attention from the press, and we were also, by the way, promoting the force block, which was also taking place at the same time in the city. It was exhibited, so we had a kind of a block of information about the event, which was really important for us. And the fourth goal was to make our dream come true, because designers, they're always selfish. They want to acquire some personal, they want to do something to feel the pleasure from the work. And our aim was to put actually some cultural posters in the light boxes in the city, and to walk between them, just enjoying the landscape. So you will ask me about maybe, because it's the end of the presentation, but I didn't mention the part of the title, which was The Secret of Success. And there are a lot of, I think, sentences about it, but the main thing for me, it came for me in a very sudden way. If you go to Sri Lanka and you stay there more than a month, you maybe will need to prolong your visa. And then you go to an office where a man put in a stamp in your passport, and there, behind his back, you can see a small blue plate with a text on it, which says, "The secret of success is hard work. That's why it's still a secret." So thank you for attention, and let me take a picture.